Hey.
Oh, nothing. Just clean. Just sorting bottles out. Yeah, just so many bottles here. Yeah, no. No. That's just I'm watching Let's Play. Yeah. That was close. Okay, Stellar Blade is a game that really caught me off guard, and I mean that in a good way. So I played the demo of this a little while ago, and I made a video giving my thoughts on the demo, and I overall liked it, and I was actually quite excited for the game. But I still wasn't ready for what we actually got, because I was expecting this to be a much smaller, kind of Souls-like game, kind of like a AA take at a Souls-like, and I expected it to take me maybe a day or two to beat, right? Well, I was wrong, because first of all, this is not a Souls-like at all. It does have bosses, and it does use the same kind of like campfire system, but it is not a Souls-like. Second of all, it is not a small game. This is a huge game. I have around 30-ish hours on the game, and I still haven't beat it yet. It's a very big game, but I have played it enough where I feel like I have an opinion on it, and I feel like I'm ready to voice that opinion. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this, because I have a lot to say about this game. Now, first of all, as I mentioned, it is not a Souls-like. Stellar Blade is an action-adventure game, basically, with some Souls-like elements, and it can be challenging at times. There were a few bosses that did beat me up on a few occasions. But I never found it too overly challenging. I don't think any boss took me longer than 20 minutes to beat. Most of them I breezed through, and it wasn't really a game where I died that much. I did die a few times, but not that many. So it definitely is not a challenging game, but it does have those kind of boss-like elements that you would expect from a game like Dark Souls. But as I said, this is an action-adventure game, and when I say that, I mean it literally, because this game has some amazing set pieces. Huge set pieces that actually blew me away. You know, you're kind of running through and you have all of these cutscenes happening, and the camera's like following the character, and it kind of turns into a movie. It has some QTE events, you know, we've seen that all before, but this game does it really well, and honestly that really captured me, and I really enjoyed those moments when they did show up. It also happens with the boss encounters a lot as well. When you're fighting a boss, you'll often end up getting put into a quick time event where you have to just press the right button at the right time, and all of this cool stuff is going on while you're watching it. It really does add to the atmosphere of the game, and it is so over the top. You know, it is a very over the top action adventure game, and it does not veer away from showing that. It embraces it. I mean, God, even the fishing in this game is intense. I don't know any other game that could pull something like that off, but Stellar Blade does it masterfully. So first and foremost, it is an action-adventure game, and that also kind of ties into the levels, because the level in the demo was kind of like an apocalyptic city. You walk through, it had again Dark Souls level design, bunch of campfires that you find that would like reset enemy positions, and like some shortcuts that you could open up along the way. And although those levels are in the game as well, and there are more than just one, there are also huge open world sections where there's, you know, like a huge open space with a bunch of point of interest scattered around it, and you go to these interests and you can explore, you can find good loot, and more often than not you'll be sent there to do quests as well, because this game has a lot of side quests. Now, if you rush through the main story of Stellar Blade, you're probably going to beat it in maybe 15-20 hours-ish, somewhere around there, because the main story doesn't seem that long. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through it so far. But the side quests and collectibles are what took up a huge portion of my time, because this game has a ton of them. Now, there are a lot of side quests that are quite deep, and by deep I mean they have stories tied to them. So you'll find an NPC, you'll speak to them, they'll give you a bunch of dialogue, and they'll tell you what their problem is or whatever, and then you'll go and help them. And there's often a story to uncover within that side quest. Now, those I thought were really great, and again, I have done a lot of them. However, there are also side quests that are on bulletin boards, where it is basically just a huge list of stuff, and it kind of gives you a description of like something that someone's posted, and then you'll go and do that thing. More often than not, these are just kind of collection side quests. They're not very interesting. You just kind of go to a spot, get the thing, and then go back to the bulletin board. There's no real interaction or story to be found in these, and I found these kind of rather lacking, and I've actually stopped doing them now. But again, the actual side quests, the ones that I consider real ones with the voice actors and everything, those are pretty good. Some of them are a bit hit and miss, you know, some of them haven't been that great or just weren't that interesting, but some of them were. Some of them I genuinely got really interested in and wanted to solve the mystery. So it is a bit of a hit and miss in the narrative design, but overall, I think the side quests are a lot of fun, and most of them are kind of on your way to the main story anyway, because again, you'll be exploring these huge open world areas, and naturally they will kind of take you into different areas to go and fight a boss or go find some sort of collectibles and stuff. So you'll kind of just do these sort of naturally as you explore anyway. And that is the other thing that I wanted to talk about with this game, is the collectibles, because this game has a ton of collectibles. Two that stand out to me are the cans that you can find around the world, and the reason that these stand out is because you get a nice little animation every time you find one. And I don't know, something about that, it just kind of makes me feel good. You know, it feels like a nice reward for finding the can. I know it's just a silly little animation, but it kind of adds a lot, and it kind of does make me excited whenever I find one. And the other main collectible are, of course, the suits in the game, because this game has a lot of suits for you to find. And this has been taking up a huge amount of my time, because I think it's a really smart way to do collectibles, and I think more games should try and do this. Being able to customize your character through collectibles that you find throughout the world are a good reward for exploration. It's a good reason to get me to go out and explore your world, because around every corner I was hoping there would be a new suit. Now there are kind of two sides to this, because although yes, the suits are cool and it's really exciting when you find a new one, but the other side to it is that there aren't as many as I would like there to be. Now there are a lot, don't get me wrong, there are a lot. However, more often than not, I would find myself going to look for like a loot box that has these outfits in, and I'll finally find one and I'll start getting excited just for it to be a bunch of materials. This happened time and time again, and at a certain point I was wondering if I'm just really stupid or if suits are even in the game, because I didn't actually get my first suit until about 6 or 7 hours in. That is a very, very long time. This game, by the way, has a very, very slow start. So buyer beware in that regard. It is going to take you about 5, 6, maybe even 7 hours before you actually get going with the game, because again, it just really does have a slow start and you're not going to find any suits for the first portion of the game. But regardless, I guess you can argue that the suits being rarer makes it even more exciting when you eventually find one. But I don't know, I was just kind of hoping that this game would have hundreds of suit variations that you could go out and find, and there doesn't seem to be quite anywhere near as that. But again, I'm still happy with the amount we got, and I do actually like a lot of the suits in the game as well. It's often very hard to choose what outfit I want to wear because, I don't know, they all look really good. Okay, now let's talk about the combat of the game, right? Because this is a huge part of it. It is an action game and there's a lot of fighting in it. So how is the combat? So first of all, the actual combat itself, I'm kind of mixed on, because on one hand it does feel good and the animations look really nice and fighting mobs is generally pretty fun. However, there is one major problem that I have with the combat, and that is the input delay. Because this game does have input delay, quite a bit of it actually. I think it's like 0.5 seconds. And the reason for that is because of the way the animations are done in this game. They're quite realistic and drawn out, which means that when you actually press the button, it starts the animation, but the attack doesn't hit until the animation is like midway through. Now, I don't actually mind this with like attacking and everything, but when it comes to parrying and dodging, oh my god, this was a nightmare. I really felt like I died unfairly so many times in this game when fighting a boss. Because I swear to god, right, I have played Sekiro, Dark Souls, and I have never had this much of a problem parrying or dodging, because I press the button what I assume is the exact right time, but of course I don't make up for that input delay. I constantly forget about it, so I end up just getting hit or dying. And that is really frustrating, because you not only have to anticipate when the hit's going to land, but you also have to make sure you press the parry button like half a second earlier, you know, before the attack actually lands, which just, it doesn't work with my brain. It's really confusing. Now, eventually, when I keep trying the boss over and over again, I do get into the flow of it. But like, I've never died in this game because the boss was legitimately difficult or I didn't understand his attack patterns or something. I only really died because of that input delay, and that kind of just made it feel kind of unfair. And I know it sounds like I'm whinging a little bit, and I don't know, maybe I am, but I just feel as though that input delay with the dodging and parrying especially, it just does not feel very good and it does hurt the combat, at least in terms of the boss fights. But as I said, I have not died in this game that much in general, so I guess it can't be that bad, right? If I can still get through it relatively easily, then maybe the input delay isn't that bad. And that is another thing about this game. Death is not punishing. Now, whether this is a good or bad thing is completely up to you, but when you are exploring the open world or doing these more linear missions, death is never really an issue because it kind of just resets you back a bit, but you don't lose any items, you don't lose any of the progress, you just kind of get pushed back in the level. Now, in my opinion, that is kind of a good thing because I don't like being stressed. You know, there's enough stress in real life. I'd rather not get stressed in video games. And if I kept dying on a certain part and I kept losing items and losing progress, it would annoy me. But at the same time, death is kind of supposed to be punishing, right? It's supposed to be that way to add tension to the game. When you can just run through and not have to worry about dying, it's kind of loses any sort of tension. And so I do get both angles of that, I really do. But again, I think I'm leaning more towards the better thing because it gives you more reasons to experiment. It gives you more reasons just to kind of have fun with it. You know, you don't have to worry about dying because it's not going to be that punishing. Speaking of tension, I want to talk about the soundtrack in this game because on one hand, I love it. It's very unique, you know, it's got like a lot of vocals going on. I've never played a game that sounds the way Stellar Blade sounds. So the soundtrack did catch me off guard, and on one hand, I do really love it, but on the other hand, it kind of feels like it goes against the game at some points because there's this one section in the game, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there is this one section in the game where there is a lot of tension. I feel like there's supposed to be a lot of tension. It's supposed to be kind of creepy, but the soundtrack goes against that in like every single way possible. And this has happened on more than one occasion where the soundtrack doesn't match what's going on in the game. And again, the action pieces are great. It matches perfectly. And when you're exploring the open world, it's great, right? It sounds awesome. But like any sort of tension moments in this game are kind of a loss because I feel like the soundtrack just doesn't match. And I'm not sure why they chose to do that. But again, it's a bit of a weird design choice to me. Now, I briefly want to talk about the dungeons and the level design because this is something that stands out to me, right? This is hands down the best part of the game. I'm not that keen on the open world sections, to be honest. I like the collectible part of it. I like trying to find cans. I like going to do side quests, and I like finding suits. However, the open world sections are largely just huge open plains with nothing on them. The two that I have explored so far are deserts. They are both deserts, and you guys know how I feel about deserts in video games. I think they're really boring. And Stellar Blade is no exception. It does have more POIs than something like Dragon's Dogma, and it does have less enemies, which is a good thing in my opinion. But still, it doesn't really captivate me as an interesting place. The only reason I wanted to explore it was to try and find new suits, not necessarily to see what's around the next corner. So it's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily good. And again, these open worlds, they have enemies just kind of walking around them, kind of not placed randomly, but sort of placed randomly, you know, there'll just be enemies kind of scattered around. There's not a lot going on in it. I'm just not a very big fan of the open world sections in general, but they're not awful, you know. I do prefer it over Dragon's Dogma 2, but again, it's still not great. However, the linear levels and the dungeons are where this game really shines because, oh my god, the dungeons in this game are phenomenal. When I say dungeons, I guess it's not really a dungeon because it's part of the main quest, but there's this one part where you go, you're in the desert and you go underground. And again, I don't want to spoil too much here, but you go underground into this big dungeon and it is so good. It has so much going on in it in terms of puzzles, minigames, and collectibles. Just so many different things you can find in there. Exploring these is such a joy. Like seriously, it was so fun. And a big part of that is definitely because of the mini-games in this game. Now, the mini-games are, again, something that really caught me off guard. It was very surprising, A, just how many of them there are, and 2, how good they are, because they are genuinely really well designed and can be very challenging. There is this one where you kind of have to use the D-pad and you have to press the arrow keys, well, depending on which one it shows you. There's like a grid and you have to press the right arrow key at the right time. There's a version of that, but it also kind of scrambles everything up, so you have to look and find which one you have to press within and get through the whole thing within a time limit. I fail this one 9 out of 10 times. There was a point, the first time I encountered this, I'm not kidding, I spent 30 minutes trying to do it. I was losing my mind. I was getting very angry at it, to be honest, and I was thinking this is a really, really, really bad minigame design. And to an extent, I kind of think it is, because as someone who has vision problems, I wear glasses if you guys don't know, I kind of found it hard to find which button I would need to press because my eyes don't immediately jump to the right place. You know, it kind of takes me a minute to kind of figure out which one it's asking me to press. So I kind of wish there was some more accessibility options in this sort of minigame, but it was really, really challenging. And I haven't walked away from any of these, like not being able to do them, you know? So I guess it kind of does its job because, again, it is a very challenging minigame that I do fail a lot of the time, but I am also able to do it. But that's just one of them. There are so many different minigames that you can do in this. All of them, I think, genuinely really well designed and a lot of fun to do. And that is a huge reason that these dungeons were so fun to explore, because doing these are a lot of fun. The other reason that these dungeons were a lot of fun was because of the general puzzle design, because this game has a lot of environmental puzzles that you kind of need to figure out. And they're never difficult in the sense that I got completely stuck and didn't know what to do, except for one part where I was on a bridge and I didn't know where to go. But other than that one time, I've never really struggled with these puzzles, but I still think they're really well designed because they do make you think. And again, although they're kind of obvious, they're still just kind of a lot of fun to do. And it really adds to it. And again, there's a lot of variety here. Each dungeon and like a new level that you find will have new challenges for you to overcome and like new ways for you to get around the environment. And this game just keeps introducing stuff like throughout the whole game. It just never stops. Like I said, I'm like 30 hours into this game and I'm still unlocking like new ways to combat, new ways to travel, all of this thing. The game just never stops giving you new stuff. And I think that is amazing. The fact they can just keep still introducing new mechanics to me this late into the game, that is really, really impressive. So yeah, the linear levels and the dungeons are definitely the standout to me in this game. And although I think it would be cool if the entire game was just like a bunch of linear levels like I initially thought it would be, because it would allow the game to really, really shine at what it's best at, I can also appreciate these open world environments because, again, they do add a lot of side quests and a lot of different things for you to go and explore. So I kind of get why they added that into the game, and although I'm not a huge fan of the design of them, I still think they're really cool and I still appreciate them being in the game in general, but the dungeons and the linear levels are absolutely the highlight here. And one other thing for the combat, the enemy variety in this game is surprisingly good. At first, again, the first 7 hours are very, very slow, and it does kind of chug along a bit. And at first I thought this game had a huge enemy variety problem because I kept running into the same enemies over and over and over again, and it wasn't really introducing anything new, so I assumed it was going to be one of those games with just a low enemy variety, but I was quite wrong. It doesn't have a huge enemy variety, it's not like the biggest I've ever seen, but it does have a very, very healthy amount. So that is another positive for this game. It has good enemy variety, and again, they are a lot of fun to fight. Okay, so I guess it's time to talk about the story, because in my notes I have that this game is not a story game. And I wrote that note when I was about 11 hours in. And I've since kind of changed my mind because, look, I don't think the narrative of this game is the highlight. Obviously, it is an action game, as I said. It has a lot of really cool set pieces and cutscenes, and again, the combat is very fun with good enemy variety. So it is definitely first and foremost an action game. However, it has a surprising amount of story. As I said, this game has a ton of side quests, and the main story is also quite long. Oh my god, there is so much talking in this game. I also found out, by the way, just really quickly, that you can't skip dialogue in this game straight away. There is a delay on skipping dialogue as well. This is me trying to skip dialogue. I was spamming the skip button the whole time. This is how fast it did it.
How I'm being offered.
Why are you doing this?
I used to have a yacht, but when the sky fell, I've always lived alone. And then I heard that back when we were first, but I lost it when the bear got caught.
That's...
I've been buying the same. Do you see this? It's all over now. It's all my fault.
the Great Desert. Now that you mention it, at Matrix 11's...
There's no point. Can't tell if it's a pun.
That is kind of insane, because again, you just seen in that example there, that was for a side quest. There is so much talking in this game, and the fact that you can't skip dialogue fast enough is a huge, huge problem for me. I think immediately they need to do a quality of life updates that allow you to skip dialogue quicker, because that is crazy. But yeah, as I was saying, there is a lot of story in this game, and to me the story is really, really forgettable. I'm not gonna lie, it did not hook me at all. It is not very memorable. However, it is interesting enough to keep me playing. When I'm playing the game and I'm going through the story, I'm invested a little bit. You know, I'm curious what's going to happen. I'm watching the cutscenes, I'm listening to the dialogue, I'm having a good time. However, as soon as I turn the game off, I instantly forget about it. I don't remember a single thing about the story. I don't remember the characters' names, don't remember what's happening. I just don't think about it, because it is not a memorable story. It's not something that you're gonna, you know, take off your headset and go, wow, that was crazy, you know, that what just happened. You are instantly gonna forget about it as soon as you stop playing the game. But it's not like it's completely dull either, because again, it does do its job of carrying you through the game. When you're playing, you're interested enough to keep playing, but again, it's just when you stop playing, it's not a memorable one, you know? Same with the side quests as well. Although a few of them, as I said, I did enjoy and I got quite invested in, I can't actually tell you a single one off the top of my head. I can't tell you anything that happened, because I don't remember anything about any side quests. They're just, again, it's just not a very memorable game. And again, back to the side quests really quickly, because I was just looking at my notes, and I did note down that one side quest was actually just a cutscene. The entire side quest was literally one cutscene. That was it. From the I picked it up, it played a cutscene, it ended, mission complete. That was the entire side quest. So again, as I said earlier, just to kind of push that a bit more, side quests are very hit and miss in this game. There are some that are good and there are some that are very underwhelming. So if there was a few things I would like this game to fix, it would be 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. The first one being input delay. I think that needs to get sorted. I understand that the animations need to play out, but I feel like blocking and dodging should be instant. You know, the moment I press the button, just because it makes it easier to time, I feel like it'll feel a lot better. I think that's something they should try and improve on. The second one would be removing the delay with dialogue, just so you can instantly skip through dialogue quickly, because again, I've only had one bug in this game, and that was when my game kind of froze up when I finished a quest. I just couldn't do anything, I couldn't press anything, so I had to end up closing the game. And when I reopened it, I was at the beginning of the quest again, so I had to redo the entire quest. And when I was trying to skip the dialogue, it was very frustrating because I'd already heard it all before, but I still had to sit there for a very long time just trying to skip it, and that was super annoying. And the final thing is with the outfits, because when you collect outfits, it doesn't actually tell you how many there are that you can collect. Now with other collectibles in the game, like cans and other things, you can check the data bank and see how many are in each level, which I think is a really cool feature. However, you cannot do that with outfits, so you don't actually know whether you've missed an outfit or not unless you go and Google it. But of course, if you go and Google it, it's also going to show you what outfit it is. And, you know, a lot of people might not want to be spoiled in that way. I know I certainly don't. So it's led to me not really knowing if I've missed a few outfits. Again, just because I don't want to Google it and spoil, you know, what any future outfits might be. But at the same time, I do want to know whether I've missed anything. You know, I want to be able to go back and find whichever outfit is in each level. I just kind of wish that was a feature. And the other thing related to the outfits is, I would love it. I don't expect it to be in this game for the record, but if we ever get a sequel or something, I would love it if you were able to mix and match parts of outfits, so you can like change the bottom and the top and the head, you know, and you can kind of put different pieces together with different outfits. I just think that would be a really fun thing to do, and I think it's something the developers should certainly consider if any of them happen to be watching this video. So that is my thoughts on Stellar Blade then. So what do I think overall? I think it is a surprisingly good game. It has a lot more on offer than what I had expected. It is a lot bigger than I had expected, and it is also a much different game than I expected. I was expecting more Dark Souls, I got more action adventure, and honestly, I am down for that. It is definitely not a perfect game by any means. It does have quite a lot of flaws. However, the good stuff outshines the flaws massively. It is a surprisingly good game, and I think considering it's their first ever console game, congratulations to the Shift Up team, because wow, this is a real home run. This is a very, very good game, so congratulations guys. this was a joy to play. I absolutely would recommend Stellar Blade to you if you're a fan of action games, especially JRPG games, because I feel like this will be right up your alley. Or if you just want to experience something new and interesting, again, I highly recommend you pick it up. It does a lot of really cool, unique things. It has a good enemy variety, it has very fun combat, a lot of good level design, and an interesting enough story to keep it going. But there you have it then. I think I've been talking long enough because my voice is starting to hurt. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss when I next upload a video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Jake, and I will see you next time.